Hey.
You're in the wrong city, Inquisitor. Did you think you wouldn't be recognized here in your old home? I've seen your trials with my own eyes.
Suros, what are you doing?
An assassin sent by the Inquisition, my lady. Daring to approach our camp.
Surely this is some trick of my mind.
My Lady Ivara, I beg—
This is a missionary, same as... We have many former...
Yeah?
What is it, Watcher? It stinks of her. It is— Surely, Aethys, must we always be tools of gods? If Woodica— So many lies. And Woodica— No, it— Perhaps all the— Woodica— Anyone with a shred of spirit— Is this some final joke at my expense? If all you have are questions, that is all you have.
Hey. Huh?
You must gather your party before venturing forth. You must gather your party before venturing forth.
This place is sacred ground, so watch where you step.
Do you remember when we were children, and the missionaries came to tell us about the gods? They told us we could see them in the stars. I remember when I heard that, I snuck out at night and climbed the watchtower in the old fort because I wanted to see them better. That fort burned down a few years ago when we cast the missionaries out. It was the missionaries who set fire to it. They didn't. Estremor.
Yeah?
I rather hoped we'd be sneaking up on it.
Vermin invading my nest, threatening my hatchling. You shall feed my young.
Huh?
What? If doubts and curiosity plague you, you're skinning your knuckles on... You see many things that aren't there. That symbol? The... No riddle there, what? Your kind has a way of interpreting its visions to fit the version of the... It's always the way of the mad. The cost of troubling me seems to worry you. Is this some final joke at my That is all you have? If doubts and curiosity plague you,
No problem. Yeah?
Let's go!
Off!
Let's go! Let's go!
Off the cliff!
Ah, God! Let's go! Ah, got him!
Ulu Sen!
Got him! The Haru beyond sea! Rip!
I'm seeing red now!
Nagaru beyond sea!
Let the Catman sniff out any trouble.
Let's go! Let's go! Curses! I'm blinder than a Horpox bat! Let's go! Die! The Haru!
Go!
Rip! Huh? Athek.
Lava Rubion Seek!
Athek Worgen Rock.
Rith Ulika!
I am Heravius, child of the Fisher Crane, adept of... Excellent! I endured Galawain's trial, and vanquished my equal. The only thing I regret now are the years I wasted viewing this whole thing as a curse. The ostracism was, no doubt, just an almost. We thank thee, Galawain, for guiding our hunt. For today we grow strong before the vultures get to him.
Lava Rubion Seek! Lava.
Useless!
We are asleep!
Got him!
Another turn, Inquisitor. I ask again, Jovara Ixensios, do you confess to these... Do you confess?
I confess to renouncing a mistake.
Do you confess to conspiracy against the one true...
I confess to opening minds.
Do you confess?
I confess to following a false prophet.
Indeed. And where might we find this?
He wears the robes of a Grand Inquisitor.
You have no followers here, heretic. Your lies hold no sway in the court of the penitents.
Only my truth, then.
Another turn.
No!
You are ready to...
I am ready to hear one.
After what seems like an eternity, your rapid descent comes to an abrupt end. You remain still for a moment while your heart settles and your eyes adjust, breathing in stale, forgotten air. Before you, a narrow and eroded walkway becomes faintly visible in the dim light, cutting a winding path through a cavern so expansive it seems a world unto itself. In the distance, you can make out the cold gleam of living Adra veins that spike and fork in and out of view from the murky depth.
Well, that went better than I expected.
I think that statue of Woodica was watching us soil ourselves on the way down.
Everyone all right? No shattered knees? Good. Just me, then.
Did anyone bring a ladder?
Sure. Hey.
Leave it to me!
Lavaru beyond seek!
Die!
You're not...
Need to try something else.
You're not getting through me.
A simple test. That's settled.
My old pupil. You're a welcome sight, but a worrying one as well. Do you still wander lost? You are so different now from who you were then, yet much remains the same. Old troubles with a new face. What is it that has brought you here? A gallant gesture, if a bit misguided. And yet I suspect there is more to this than you have said. I can only guess your presence here has something to do with Theos. The energy of this place changes when he is near. I don't know what he has done, but I do know of the souls that pass through here now. They do not come by choice. After all this time, he would still stand against the tide. I will tell you what I remember. I can see his influence, still hanging like a weight about your neck. So it always was. He had inspired. It was just after the trial. You were agitated. I think because you started to consider that what I was teaching may have been true. That the gods aren't real.
Huh. I dreaded the idea from the moment the Delimgon suggested it. And yet, it almost feels like a relief. She's not serious.
Perhaps not to her. Many are those whom the gods have scorned. This is
nonsense! Clearly she has not been on the receiving end of a god's ire. She'd know how real the gods can be.
What I taught was that the gods whose faith we had been spreading were not gods at all, but something else entirely. Something created by people. They were conceived by Engwith, a society of high minds and broad concerns. Theos's people. In their time, every people worshipped its own gods. Sometimes they warred over it. After a few wars of their own, the Engwithans sought an end to it. Generation after generation, they prodded and worked the stitching of the world and unlocked its secrets. One day, they found an answer. Except the answer was no answer at all. It shook them, this finding. If they could discover this on their own, how long until others would? How long before war and chaos reigned over a world without consequence? But they had mastered many things in their pursuit of these answers. And with their mastery, they crafted their own gods to fill the void, and sent missionaries to the corners of the world to spread their faith. I never thought of it as faith, but I think you are right to call it that. Let the world see I became a missionary because the gods brought me hope that I wanted to bring to others. The Engwithan missionaries all knew it, but they never told the rest of us. You asked me this once before. Nothing I can say would be any proof, and it may be certainty your soul craves. Resolution. But if you are bound for the same place Theos, everyone faces this truth at one time or another. Few confront it. Few have the stomach to ask what if. And in avoiding the question, they deny themselves an identity. What if all the tragedy, all the persecution, came in defense of an imposter?
That's not... That can't be right. Aethys, he...
The power of the gods is undeniable. The truth of the story they weave is... What if it were forbidden knowledge rather than fault that earned your doom? What if you...
Margren set a path for me. She is fickle and cruel, but that is how she teaches. You know nothing of the fires that have shaped me.
And what if the fires themselves were lies? Lies you told yourself to bridge the gap between experience and truth. What if you had always been alone, without guidance?
Well, as poorly as I've chosen my guides, I suppose it would be a comfort to know that I'm free of them.
The freedom has always been. It was the guidance. What if neither guide knew the way? How then would you choose a course?
Well, I suppose I would always choose that which makes me stronger. But instead of doing it because Galawain wishes it, I do it merely because I wish it for my own life. Oh, Galawain, know that your humble servant...
What if no god had the authority to relieve our burdens or absolve our sins?
Are the gods any less important because we created them? If what we're saying is true, people made the gods because they needed forgiveness, guidance, grace. Things we're not so good at offering one another. For the first time in decades, I feel whole. And it was the power of a god that made me so.
Power it may have been, but not the power of a god. There is bliss to be found in the things we create, but sorrow as well. I ask these things not to trouble you, but to show why they must be confronted. No answer is simple, but somewhere between them all lies a truth so beautiful, not even a god could conceive it. Do we not? If that is truly what you believe, then you are a far different person than the one I knew. I've been alone here with my thoughts for so long now. I've found peace with my failures, and with my punishment. I no longer curse fate for what might have been. But there is one thing that has clawed and scraped at my mind all these years. One thing that will not be put to rest until I know. I need to know why you chose to remain with the Inquisition, even after you'd learned the truth. Do you remember? I knew it was a risk, taking you into my camp. I knew you still had strong feelings. In my pride, I'd hoped to channel them towards faith. Good. Good. The things I taught, the things I believed, I needed to hear that. I needed to know it wasn't because... You were a blank slate to me once. A blank slate that You had heard both sides, seen everything. If not you, then who? I'm aware of the folly of trying to learn so much from so little, even knowing what you've told me. And what of your understanding of our past? Are you at ease with the choice you made? There is nothing to forgive. The fault was always mine. I led you down the path that led to Theos. When I tried to steer you back, At first I thought this might be the source of your soul's anguish. But now I see I was mistaken. You are not divided on this matter. You have put it behind you. It is with Theos that your agony lies. Yet if there is anything I can tell you that would be of use, ask and you shall know. In a matter of speaking, this is Braeth Yamen. This prison was full once in the days of the Inquisition. But time weathers all things, even will. I'm the only tenant who remains. Yet, they aid you because they would bend you to their own purposes. Engwith built gods from ideals, and an ideal on its own is a grotesque and vicious thing. But these souls, these forgiven the gods have bequeathed you like chattel. The last time someone asked me that, the gods need to be reminded. I could not say for sure. His words mattered to you when you knew. He cares only for the secret he keeps locked away. He destroys anyone who might discover it. No, that's why he's always favored Woodica. It isn't in her love of promises or justice. It's her disregard for the rules. Her willingness to do what is necessary. To Theos, she's not a deity, but an ally with which to conspire. When her power waxes, she does as she pleases with this realm, as well as hers. And she wants that secret guarded as much as he. If Theos succeeds, there will be a shift in the balance of power among the gods. Woodica was vanquished once, when the other gods decided she had gone too far, and her power diminished. With this infusion, there is no telling what she will do. The only certainty is that there will be chaos in their realm, as well as ours. You will not find a more resolute being on all of Eora. There is no offer you could make, nor spell you could cast, nor pain you could inflict that would make him reveal what he hides. But I see you have become a watcher in this life. Perhaps in defeat, when he can no longer defend himself, Theos will not wait for you. If you do not catch up to him now, you may never find him again. If I repent, all I have done has meant nothing. For my part in leading you to Theos in the very beginning, if ever we should meet again...
Yeah?
So, it's true. The gods are a sham that people have followed for thousands of years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we note a rather sharp drop somewhere around here? Full of surprises, aren't you?
Incredible! I knew the builders could work wonders, but this is amazing!
I don't suppose you could make a few bridges the same way, hmm?
Can you do that again? I had something in my eye. I missed most of it.
Got it.
Thought I'd see with my very own eyes. Even when you look Weil in the face, you can't...
You understand the value of a mystery watcher. A buried scroll, a hidden truth. You unravel a thread, Watcher. One you have lost and discovered over generations. And following it to its end has only brought... A nebula of souls, blind and brimming with potential. The answer to Woodika's question and the beginning of yours. What would you do with them? A mightier quarry for a more glorious battle. Yet the hunter takes the rack of antlers and the string of fangs for the memory of hunting the beast, tracking it. No end, Watcher. That is the purpose. None know. They could end up anywhere in the realms of gods or mortals, whole or divided. Discovering them again and charting their course through the ether will be a new mystery. That is a word for endings, and this...
Yeah?
That didn't work!
Are you ready to take the oath? To spread the word of the gods to the lost and heathen? I am trusting you to remain loyal to the gods in this. If you do not, you will have greater powers than me to answer to. But you will answer to me as well. I wouldn't ask this were there any other choice.
This is a missionary, same as I was. Taught the wrong things as I was. Oceanus. They have held off many would-be invaders.
You are ready to give a confession?
I am ready to hear one from you.
You are far from your post, Inquisitor. What brings you here? That woman sought only to destroy the foundations of peace and civility that my people sacrificed everything to build. We are in a sanctum holy to Utica. There are others like it in service to the other gods. I come here often to pray for her counsel, and in this space I may be assured that she hears me. It has many uses, but its purpose is to bring structure to the chaos that surrounds it. They are monuments to Woodica's greatest servants among my people. I hope to join them myself one day, but my work is not yet complete. The Inquisition was based on the need to cut the flesh. What is a god? A higher power? A rewarder of good deeds and punisher of the wicked? Something men can turn to in their darkest moments when their days seem only like bridges from one tragedy to the next? Our gods are all these things. We are in a sacred place within earshot of the gods themselves. This is not the time. You've been through much these past few months. You will return home and you will rest. When you feel you have recovered, you may rejoin us at the trials. The Inquisition is far from over. There are many who continue to spread the lies of the apostate. The Inquisition will not end until we have pronounced judgment on all of them. How did you find it? Another in a string of acts of petty defiance. For all her knowledge, she always preferred spite over reason. Then she should have obeyed. I ask one thing of all my followers. She was incapable. A waste of rare... What of your cohorts, then? They have followed you to their deaths. Is it loyalty that brings them here? Or is it as my agents suggest? You You worshipped Aethys, did you not?
Your spies are good. What gave me away? The cave?
Yet when your god needed you the most, you chose your country.
We were being invaded. Not by anyone who was acting like a god.
Then I should think your hometown gave you a hero's welcome when you returned.
They made cake. Hard to blame people for losing faith when it's the gods who are misbehaving.
The gods argue over how best to prevent Kith society from destroying itself. These disruptions would not be necessary were mortal instinct not so diseased. What of you, Orlan? My agents tell me you are far from home, both in distance and in years. Have your friends proven a worthy distraction from the pain of ostracism?
Ostracism? Is that the name for the groin rash your mother gave me? Don't fool yourself, old man. You know nothing about me.
Enlighten me, then. Is it Galawain you serve? Or is it—
I do not serve Galawain. I am an instrument of his will.
But such difficulty on the way. If you had only accepted that perhaps you were fit to serve neither god, just as you were unfit to serve your tribe, you might have saved yourself the trouble.
Belittle my struggle at your own peril, Theos. I have been reforged by challenge and contest. Saved myself the trouble? Pfft, trouble, my friend, is what has made me strong enough to pull your lungs out through your colon.
Yet I suspect you amount to little in your god's eyes in either case. You built a weapon that delivered exactly as promised.
I served my goddess as you did yours.
Yet the other builders were slain. 11 of a dozen. Why not you? Were you somehow different? Redeemable in your—
There was a message there, whether she meant it or not.
Or was it merely that your goddess wanted you dead as well, and your delusions of importance prevented you from seeing the obvious?
A whore's beguiling charms, nothing more. But the spell's broke now, Theos. The trial's over. I know friend from foe. And I've come here now to see a foe repaid.
You were able to destroy a god because another god wished it. Without her hand to guide you, you could not strike at a god any more than you could strike the sky. You are impotent, and not just from the pox. State your name and purpose, young acolyte.
My name belongs to the gods, in my hand to their service. And I'm going to purge it of your stain.
You serve none but yourself. Without contact with your order, you can have no higher purpose. Only the base can—
No. I've risen above them. I'll take the leaden key and lead in a way that you, who remained nothing more than a slave to the gods, never could.
A leader without insight, directing an organization that does not question. Quite a vision, Initiate. And a lost gift-bearer. You have been many things in this life, all because you fear what you really are.
Last I checked, the Ingwithans didn't make you a god. You want to tell me you don't have any regrets of your own?
There is no greater calling than the spread and protection of our faith. I regret nothing in service of that cause.
Then you haven't been looking hard enough.
Or perhaps I have merely witnessed the You are here because you are lost. The gods cannot reach everyone, I'm afraid. May you fare better in your next lives. I gather you have had your soul awakened. Why else would you shadow my footsteps like some stray mongrel? You think I have something to offer you, but our business was concluded long ago. I answered your questions once. That your soul is not fit to accept the answers is of little concern to me. I lied to no one, Not to you, not to anyone. The gods are real. They are everything we need them to be, and the world is better for it. The heart of this country has skipped a beat. Nothing more. When plague arrived at the great city of Arborensis, I saw to it that the cure did not. That's where you are mistaken. There was a time, back when your soul was still a shapeless mist. But all that changed when they learned of the true gods. Our gods. All those misshapen, bestial instincts melted beneath. There is no false hope. Only hope. Had you imagined this existence? The one the apostate would have created. We are not all so virtuous. But more than that, it would be a hollow existence. All mysteries forever unanswered. All purposes constructed from me. For all my years, I have seen exactly what they are capable of. What the apostate asked was beyond any man. All I have seen, the millennia of experience. I will not be dissuaded from this course. This is the only way. You have not thought this through. There is no leaving this place for you. I allowed it once, but you have made it all too clear what a mistake my mercy was. With your soul and thousands of others, I will... Hear me, Woodica. Your servant calls for aid.
I hope this is the end, but what's to stop him from being born again with the same ill intent? And before you suggest the option, no, I'm not eating his soul. I'll put almost anything in my mouth, but not that.
some point, you have to look at the things your God is telling you to do. Ask yourself if it's worth it. All those lives. And at the end of them, he was no better than the very people he sought to guide. A pity he would ever have to face that realization again.
Can't help but feel sorry for him. To live so long without a fresh start.
You've let him off too easily, Watcher. I would have left such scars on his soul that he'd have begged escape from the wheel's turn.
Yeah? Sure.
I have observed you, Watcher. The way you handled that noble girl in Deerford, delivering an idol effigy to her uncle. A most careful scheme. You have labored at the pleasure of others. That shriveled hag in Hadrat House. And now the gods give you orders and commands, even while you set out to fix what they can. The exiled queen is not an ungrateful patron. Finish the work Theos began. Strengthen Woodica with these souls and allow her to become the most powerful of all the gods, with you as her favored. You say that now, but when you're standing in front of the machine, considering the lifetimes and the powers that await you, we'll see what you...
At your command, the ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale, pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Theos used to enter Sun and Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Ter Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Theos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Deerwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the essence gathered in Sun and Shadow was sent across Deerwood to meld with and galvanize the souls of its people. In the days that followed, Dear Woodens, confronting adversity and expecting to be at the mercy of their own weakness, instead found strength and the will to persevere. The aggrieved found themselves able to carry on after their losses. The desperate found new reasons to hope. And the new reasons to hope were many, for Widewind's legacy had come to an end after 15 years. Hollow births ceased in the Deerwood, and a country that only days ago had seemed on the brink of collapse was suddenly on the path to a recovery, a fitter, more resilient country in the preferred image of the god of the hunt. Though you had killed Lord Radric in his throne room, so strong was his drive to rid his land of Eothasians that he returned to life as a death guard, a deathless crusader for his brutal cause. With the remains of his humanity stripped away, Radric came to see all the people of Gilded Vale as worshippers of Eothas, and one day he led his forces into the village personally to see them all purged from his lands. Gilded Vale was left a hollow shell, its buildings ruined, and its people slaughtered. Even travelers and would-be squatters knew better than to take refuge inside its borders. Lord Radric returned to Radric's Hold, where he remained, keeping eternal watch over his barren domain. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But once the dozens had regrouped in the wake of the riots, they quickly put an end to the criminal activity, patrolling the streets in droves and administering their brand of law on any perceived offenders. They also took the opportunity to depose the weakened Knights of the Crucible from their position of authority, branding them traitors to the people for their actions during the riots. Whatever knights weren't stoned to death in front of their keep were forced into exile. The external contingent of knights stationed at Fleetbreaker Castle would remain there, their high justice plotting the city's recapture. The dozens would soon find themselves overwhelmed by the problems of a leaderless metropolis, and in the days and months ahead, Defiance Bay remained on the brink of collapse. Though the machine atop Ter Noaneth had been disabled, it had not seen its last use. Heritage Hill was rebuilt, and no sooner had the first families moved in to resettle the district than members of the Leaden Key, acting under standing orders from their Grand Master, climbed the tower and reactivated the machine. The initiates slew a handful of the new settlers under cover of night, and watched as history repeated itself, the victims reanimating and devouring the survivors. After this second incident, the district would remain abandoned. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay. But those who had escaped the melee in the palace hearings remembered the testimonies of the strange guest who had shown up that day and absolved animancy, implicating the Leaden Key instead. The rumor spread quickly, and soon the popular belief was that the assassin had been a Leaden Key spy. When the legacy had lifted, people came to see it not as a sign that the riots had been according to the god's wishes, as Theos had hoped, but as a confirmation that animancy had never been the source of the problem in the first place. Dear Woodens instead convinced themselves that the riots had somehow purged Defiance Bay of Leaden Key spies, and that the end of Widewind's legacy was their well-deserved reward. The rage against animancers was quickly forgotten, and those who had survived were permitted to return to Brackenbury Sanitarium and rebuild it so they might resume their studies. In the town of Deerford, an underground cult dedicated to Scan insinuated itself into the town's institutions. It became a popular travel destination for the wealthy, who were actively courted by the town's leadership. But few who visited the town would ever return, as they soon found their fortunes plummeting and their reputations destroyed by their own kin. Abidon's renewal brought new vigor and purpose to a god long known for quiet, steady labor. Handicraft saw a revival in the Deerwood, and no smith wanted for an apprentice. Additionally, Abidon's restored interest in preservation led to redoubled efforts to survey Ingwithan ruins. Animancers and craftsmen alike found much to study, but tensions with Eir Glanfath rose. As for Stalwart, the Battle of Kairon's Scar only strengthened their resolve to unlock the mysteries of Durgan steel and build new marvels with the White Forge. However, Stalwart's ambitions brought them into further conflict with the Raid Serens, as more and more impoverished communities gathered at the border and vowed to finish the work of the Iron Flail. It would be many generations before the region saw peace. The Flames That Whisper clan found a cautious peace with Stalwart, particularly once the villagers heard of the aid the ogres had offered against the Eyeless. The clan moved back into the Russet Wood, and as Stalwart grew in prestige, the villagers formed a tighter alliance with their ogre neighbors. Within a generation, ogre traders visited Stalwart, and village hunters were welcome in the Russet Wood. Harmka's death had brought the Devil of Carrick little satisfaction. In time, her taste for vengeance soured. What replaced it was a hunger to feel something, anything, new. Summer had thinned the snowpack twice over when she felt the joint at her elbow first begin to stiffen. She turned her back on the hopes of animancy and civilization and walked east. She pushed through the mountains, past Raid Ceres, and into the broad plains of Ishamiddle. She had forgotten what it was like to simply journey, no goal or destination in mind. Though she felt nothing more than the steady thump of her feet on the road, the endless horizons and grassy meadows were new to her. She measured her time in the gradual rusting of her body and was satisfied. Her movements slowed, but so did the world around her. Waist-high grasses undulated and tacked in the wind, as gradual as the tides. Sparrows and blackjays made steady pilgrimages across the sky, each flap of their wings a solemn salute. She could hardly move when she found something she had never seen before, the ocean. With the last of her strength, she pulled herself beneath the water, content at last to feel the movement of currents and the constant caress of the waves. Free from the burden of her memory, Maneha soon left the gift-bearers and resumed adventuring. Now that she had a taste for the world, she wanted to experience it anew. Maneha rediscovered her zest for battle, extravagance, and romance. She kept her gaze on the horizon, looking from one journey to another more distant, from the lover in her arms to another more fervent. Hers was a life of excitement, violence, and passion. She moved too quickly for regret to catch up with her, and she hoped only that she might outpace it in the next life as well. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every thane and earl in Deerwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Deerwoodinians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike. Reputed as the finest fortress in all Deerwood, people would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. After the death of the Master below, a strange quiet fell over the endless paths of Ad-Nua. The attacks on the fortress above ceased, Ad-Nua's silent titan the closest remaining thing to a master in its musty, forgotten passages. With your business concluded, Haravius quietly took his leave and headed home to Thane Bog. The elders of the Fisher Crane had not warmed to Haravius in his absence, and when he arrived, he was denounced and scorned. Haravius spoke of his deeds and of his communion with Galawain, yet none would support his petition to return to the tribe. One by one, starting with the oldest, Haravius challenged each member of the council to single combat, humiliating the Riau in a series of savage duels. With half the council bloodied and shamed, the elders at last acknowledged Haravius' strength, announcing him a hunter of the Fisher Crane tribe. Upon being granted this title, Haravius calmly left the village and embarked again on his life of wandering. Adair chose not to return home to Gilded Vale. Still most comfortable far from cities, he settled in Deerford, which, like many towns in the Deerwood, was beginning the slow process of rebuilding. Believing now that it was the obligation of Kith to be the leaders their gods had not, Adair was soon named mayor of the town, and under his guidance, Deerford soon began to prosper. He expelled the last of the Scanites from the area and drew new settlers with the offer of land, a trick he had learned from someone he otherwise preferred to forget. With each passing day, Deerford would come to more closely resemble the gilded vale of Adair's childhood, the one worthy of its name. When the dust settled in sun and shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Theos Ixarchanon, his former master. He saw where the Grandmaster had gone wrong and what would be required to undo the harm Theos had wrought. With a flick of his wrist, he burned Theos's robe, headdress, and every other symbol of the man's power. Never again, he vowed, should Kith live in fear and blind obedience to an authority they did not understand. Armed with the knowledge and courage he had gained on his journeys with the Watcher, he set out on the long and lonely task of dismantling the Leaden Key. With the Watcher's goals accomplished and his own vows fulfilled, Kanarua sailed back to Tekoa. His friends and family found him much changed, for a pall had fallen upon the man, smothering his former enthusiasm. Called before the Lore College, Kana told them of the pain the Engwithan legacy brought to the lands abroad. He insisted that a search for answers abroad could only fragment the Rawatai people, as it had done to the Deerwood. His findings were met with much respect, and Kanarua's voice came to be considered an influential one in the growing move towards Rawatai's isolation. With Theos defeated and the souls released from sun and shadow, healthy children were born once again in the Deerwood. The grieving mother sought a place where she might do penance for the birthing bell. She returned to Deerford, where, to the astonishment of the villagers, she delivered the first healthy child in over a decade. She remained there, and with each new birth, she saw a measure of hope restored to the Deerwood, and a measure of grace for her own troubled past. Durrance continued to blame Woodica for the atrocities of the Saints' War. Believing Magrin to have been a pawn in the machinations of the Queen that was, and feeling that Theos's expulsion had been a step towards reconciliation with his goddess, Durrance tried for a time to reopen communication with her. When only silence came, he took it as a condemnation of his continued existence. Ultimately, he built a pyre and threw himself upon it, using his own shattered staff as kindling. You and Sagani never found Persoc together. The Adra figurine had gone dark by the time they emerged from Sun and Shadow, and it was another month before Sagani finally accepted that Persoc's trail had gone cold again. Her search took her beyond the Deerwood and as far as the Living Lands. She saw the great coastal cities of Rawatai and the ruins of Old Valia, absorbing the details of these strange and distant lands. 20 years passed before the Adra figurine finally glowed again. When it did, she followed its signal to a quiet hamlet on the outskirts of Adir. There, she met a young farmer and told her of her past as an elder of Masuk. Sagani returned to a village that had forgotten her face, but remembered her story. Masuk greeted her with cautious warmth, and Sagani found that their ways had become strange to her. She also learned that Kalu had perished of winter fever a few years before, and her middle child, Najuo, had died in a raid. But she found her daughter Yakona a hunter and mother of 3, and her son Malak a builder of mighty walls. In them, she came to find her place in the village, and the familiar contours of a world that had changed in her absence. For you, the death of Theos brought an end to your waking visions, and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead.